assume that, probably not justifiably, that everyone has done some functional use with the Mark III and are intending to upgrade the use of that machine. So we're going to, some of these valves are really hard when you first start. So, okay, pull some of this stuff off of here so we can start right at the very beginning.
Something to set it out there.
Yeah, once again, you're tearing it apart and putting it back.
I know, I do this so often. But it's easier to be able to see what's going on if I start from the beginning. Okay, so here you go. This is your traditional Mark III. There's a couple of things missing. One would be the valve that there's a 1/4 inch nickel that fits on here traditionally with the Mark III, where you connect your pressure gauge, the hose to your pressure gauge, that I removed because we're going to change how we use that. So I've removed the cross, which includes that flare fitting for your pressure gauge, or your, actually it's a dual function gauge, both pressure and vacuum, as well as your vacuum valve and your recycle valve. So I pulled that off. Additionally, it has a little sign on. This belongs to Owen, by the way. Oh, this is Owen, everybody. And when we stop for lunch, man, I think it's time that we probably should all introduce ourselves. It's such a small group, we broke right into the... Okay. I think I got it now. I think I got it. So, you're not going to be using... Owen, would you undo this, please? This one comes out easy. Okay. Just, okay. So we take the overflow hose off, which you all know we will still continue to have a function of the overflow hose. Only it's going to be using the flex hose. See the flex hose that we've got there, and which gives us the capability to change our column size with ease. You know, you can run a column 4x36, which is that column there that Ty was talking about, that will run 2.5 pounds, to an 1.5 by 1 foot column, if that's what you wanted to do to finish off whatever strain it is that you happen to be using. Or if some friend comes in with, you know, a 1/4 pound plant from their medical garden, and you want to run a
is that the biggest tube you have?
No, we have also run 6-inch by 2 foot columns, and you can run 6-inch by 36, but you got to make sure you've got enough butane in your storage tank to fill that container, because it takes a bunch of space.
How much product would you stick in that?
In the inch or the 6-inch by 36.
Yes.
Probably, you know, 4 pounds ish.
The double.
That'll get long recovery.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not as bad as you think. It is, depending, because we're running 2 pumps. I mean, you noticed out there we're running 2 pumps. It's much slower, of course, if you run 1 pump. So, okay, we've removed most everything that we're going to need to remove, except, well, actually, we're going to also remove the column, as well as the flare at the, or the concentric reducer, the modified concentric reducer. We're going to remove that as well, because we're going to use it at the top. See what we've done up there? We've added the gauge at the top so that you can tell what pressure you've got going in your column. So we're going to remove this end cap with the MPT, and we're going to reserve these 120 mesh screens.
Is there any benefit to having the gauge at the top where the column is, or down lower on, say, where the sight glass is? The gauge, I mean, just, so it's just down lower?
You potentially could put it there,
Yeah, I'm just,
but there's so much going on down there.
yeah, I was just saying, I didn't know if there was any difference of it having it here, to say having it here
Oh, you could.
somewhere.
I mean, you could.
Okay, I just wanted to know if it was good or bad.
The issue is that you have to be on the upside of that valve.
Yeah.
So, and the reason that yeah, so you could put it.
You can put it lower, you just have to be on the upside of the valve is all.
The issue is that it just did a good reuse of that concentric reducer piece at the top. But you could put it at the bottom and eliminate that concentric reducer completely if you wanted. You could do that. I mean, where they are is
Just trying to repurpose parts, I can understand that completely.
right, and it made a real easy add to that. So, but and everybody already has it, so it was, so it made it easy. But there's a couple of things. There's another thing that I want to do. It's the reason I got her, so she wouldn't run from my dog that chases cats. So, it's an obvious, simple matter. Most of this is pretty. And so, okay. I know what's going on here.
Look cold.
Sometimes the seals aren't quite the right exact size. And if they're too small, it's not such a problem. It's when they're slightly too big that it's ugly. Trying to smush it into a little space and it's trying to pop out. So, here, pop this on. Oh, I should just use Owen. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, Owen, take off that top concentric reducer, remove that. And remove the valve off of it. You can leave the seal there. And take the valve and the flare off of the reducer and take them off.
Oh, this and this flare?
Take them both off at the same time. We're just going to put it on different. And then you're going to put it on this concentric reducer.
This done?
Yes. Does it fit? Yes.
The other one's a 3/8, isn't it?
And the other one's 3/8.
And where did you want?
And that will go into the valve, just like it was before. Let me see if I can find where it is. Then we should have another.
What's the life of these seals?
Here it is. These seals, it depends on how. I have people that are constantly calling me and asking, "Send me another seal."
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing with these seals, man? I mean, I run a lot of material and I don't replace my seals that often. What are you doing?
Is that because they're not seating it right, or something?
Sometimes not seating right, but more often than that, they're cinching them down too tight. So they compress and they lose their memory, and so they don't seal well after that. Okay, so now you need to put this on.
That's what I've done.
So
a little's
that's,
good, a lot's better.
Yeah.
I'll order another 8 of those seals, throw these out. That's exactly what I did. I ruined a set of
exactly.
seals.
And then add, here you go, Owen, and then add that.
Is there some
And,
direction?
the other direction. You won't be able to use it if you put it any other way.
And actually, I didn't even know that until I watched your video.
Oh, and I haven't got. Would you grab that phone in case it was somebody that needs to get here? We got one guy that's not here.
So you won't be able to use it just because it's facing the wrong way when we do it?
Yeah, you won't be able to open it because you'll run into the concentric reducer first. So, okay, so now clamp that on top of the valve here.
like this.
Well, no, you're not gonna wait before you do that. Before you do that, you're getting carried away. We need to add, see, who's got their pocket knife with them? Thank you. Nice, sharp, too. Okay, so now you're gonna put this sight glass on, and then
You're not really using many tools to put this together, huh? Just, no?
tools.
Nice.
You don't need much. Okay, I'm missing a valve.
I've got a torque wrench, I mean a inch-pound torque wrench for these. And I took the socket after I watched your video, so you said not to torque them down with anything else. I still torque them down to the 50 inch-pounds like these nut bolts here. I just took a socket and cut it, so I can slide it over there and use the torque wrench. But it gets it all precise.
Precise might be important,
Well, I'm anal about it, that part.
but then again, it might not.
Yeah, it might not.
I'm missing a valve. Let me run and
I just
get one
know they
more
said
valve. All right. Okay. Next valve. Need a slam.
Can you go certain direction?
Up, yep. Okay, and now you take that new concentric reducer, put that on top here, gauge. Now you will eventually have to be paying pretty close attention to where those handles go
Right.
for the valves so that you line up and don't get in your own way. But fortunately, it's all clamped on, so it's easy enough to adjust and change to being exactly what you need it to be. I just love having somebody else doing all of this. But, so now you see we have two valves coming off of that concentric reducer. One of them is a 1/4 inch ball valve with a 1/4 inch flare on it, and that's now going to be attached to your vacuum pump, right? So when you repack your column, that you can valve the column off and pull a vacuum on the column before you join the two atmospheres together, or lack thereof. But over here we have the valve set up for our injection port, and we've modified that to a 1/2 inch valve such that we can accommodate the new 1/2 inch flow lines for cryogenic temperatures. So if we put these really close together, it would be ugly trying to spin on the valve and the T appropriately around that other valve handle. So we put a short extension on it just to get it slightly away. So if you want to add this structure to the end of that injection valve. So what we're doing by adding this T and another valve onto this injection valve is we are giving the ability to change the direction of our injection from injecting from the bottom to injecting to the top. So this valve is actually going to connect to the overflow, right? This is where it's most confusing to folks. And we're gonna remove this compression fitting as we removed the other one as well. And we're going to add an 1.5 end cap by female amputee, 1/4 inch female amputee, such that we can add our sight glass onto the system. Oh, and now here I am doing it all, and I was supposed to let Owen do it. Here, Owen, it goes there. I'll try to be better. But I
Carla,
any promises.
did you want it heated or just put the pesto and the tomato on the bread?
Oh, I would like to heat the back side, yeah. Okay.
No.
Yes. Yes. Okay. And then from here, we've got another sight glass. Wait, I have to go through the whole thing. Maybe I do. But you want to be careful with this one. I mean, did you see how sharp this knife is, you guys? My dad always had really sharp knives.
They're not very good.
Yeah, they're not. And this one goes in next.
Well, it cuts cleanly through the meat of the hand.
Exactly. And here's another clamp. So you need to clamp that on right there.
Right. You want to command these? They're going to heat a little bit, just get a basic toast on them. And then only want to pull them out, drop them onto that, toast that meat. And then it's just
Oh.
pesto, tomato, and cheese.
Okay, so we got that. So I still need one more. That. Yeah, it's kind of hanging loose. I'd like it. We'll pull it off before we send you away with it. And
Oh, that's right. This is you guys' machine. Here, you can do it.
so we're,
Sweet.
Kitty, it would
Hands
be
up.
really a lot
Yeah.
easier for me if you would get out of the way.
Take it to all the way. Got
Okay,
it.
this goes right there, but we're still missing one
You
seal.
gotta stop moving,
Okay.
Can't be like that.
Okay, one seal. We were running 2 long hoses to the top. It added a lot more parts to the,
Oh.
you know, and the more parts you got, the more
Just kind of
places
condenses it
for
down.
error. This brings it all down to everything's operating right down
I see.
tight. It just made way more sense to, you know, just kind of like bringing this in, your overflow in to above the sight glass and eliminating a sight glass. And you know, because if you came in right, instead of coming in here, if you came in right here, and then you could use that for a temperature probe or, you know, a blowout valve or whatever else you'd want to add to the system, and just come in like right here, and then you would eliminate this valve and this valve, take this valve off, stick it, you know, and
Right.
bring your hose in and bring it in right here.
That would work real well. That does
So-
eliminate a sight glass.
Yeah, and it eliminates the sight glass and the valve. So, and that's the way eventually I'm going to be, but I haven't found the part yet that neatly does that without sending me to the ceiling.
You could tie that in just below that,
Between,
the sight glass and the valve?
correct. Because, and I would still be sandwiching that sight glass between 2 valves. On this side I would have 1 valve coming in right there, so I could valve off right there if there was any sort of a rupture, and I could valve off at the top for containing the column if there was a rupture, and valve off at the bottom no matter where that rupture was. So you still have the ability to isolate that sight glass in the event of issue. But I wanted to make sure everybody sees, so this is the part that's the most confusing for people, is how the overflow works. in the bidirectional function. So pay close attention to that one. So anyway, we go from there to the 4 by 36 inch column, which we could take these off and you could look at it, but it's only seals inside of there. I mean,
I'm
you've seen
good.
one seal, you've seen them all. At any rate, seals and 4" by 1.5" end cap reducers. You could do conical reducers, and once again that adds more height to the system as well, so this is why I don't have them on here. In the testing, we found that by doing the biflow and getting a good soak, from the bottom to begin with, and then pushing it down from the top, that you eliminate a lot of that need anyway. So you're still pulling it through.
Was the concentric reducer just to keep the butane flowing,
Yeah,
splashing through the column?
well, it moves it out to the sides, and that was the reason that I went to biflow to begin with, is in looking at the difference between the Mark III with the 1.5" column. It cleans it really well because you're forcing all of that butane through that same diameter, so more butane passes over the same spot. And the wider you go, the less that happens. So I started, as soon as we started running these big columns, pulling samples out from the edges to see what was going on. And that's why I decided that you needed to shoot both directions through, like globules being left. We weren't getting everything. So it made complete sense to do it that way. And our return increased immediately when we did that. So at any rate, we're pretty happy with it. So the other thing that I did differently than a lot of other folks is the larger that you get your screens, the more expensive they are. And especially when you're talking about those 120 mesh screens, they get really spendy, and they break really easy. And the more span you have, the easier they are to break, and the more expensive they get. And so I just do plain 4" seals around the side, and for maintaining the particulates inside the column to keep them from escaping into your padding, I use the 1.5" seal, way less money, and I put that here on the end of the 1.5" portion of your 1.5" by 4" end cap reducers. So that's where I'm collecting any particulates. It's way cheaper to do it that way. So most
And you're having with the coffee filter, you're having no problem plugging those filters?
No, we haven't. I haven't had any problem with that at all. But incidentally, although we are using copper filters, if I had time to go to American Scientific and do some research on some pre-cut nice filters that fit exactly, that is exactly what I would be doing. But
Where do you put copper filters in?
Huh?
Where do you use a copper filter?
When you're packing the column
you
on
put
both ends, you put
okay.
coffee filters. We,
All right.
I
I missed that.
kind of bunch them up both ends. I have just one coffee filter, and I fold it such that the rough edges are facing toward the material so that it captures any particulates, and the smooth side is away. Yeah.
Just one.
Yeah, 1 or 2. It just depends on the material that I'm running, how fine it is. I mean, so when you're prepping your material, that's another thing to think about. You don't want to run it through anything mechanical, like a grinder or a coffee mill or anything like that, food processor. And you can, but you have to just do a quick burst. Otherwise, you get way tiny particulates, and they'll pass through frickin' any filter.
Is it true then too, the cut edges can bleed out some more chlorophyll?
Well, yeah, but it depends. By the time by the time you've prepped your material for what we're doing, it should be so dry that, you know,
Yeah.
the chlorophyll's gonna be minimized. Plus, you're gonna be running cold.
I just hammer crush one with gloves.
You could do that as well, and it all depends upon what you want to do. I mean, if you're you know, entering a cannabis cup, I wouldn't be touching them. I'd be dropping whole buds in there.
buds in there for show.
And yeah, and you know, pass gas through it once, and you know, save the rest for something else because you want it to be. And you'd be harvesting your plants early so that
Not aged, the trichomes aren't aged at all.
so they're not aged. Sweet. Mailman package here, so that they're not aged. Would you catch that, please?
Yeah,
Yeah, so you know,
blow for show.
cut them a week early, you know. So, you know, or maybe longer. I mean, it depends on how long. You know, I leave mine for a long time, so if I was going to do it for show, I'd be taking them down at 7 weeks, maybe 6, depending upon the strain.
This is what you could have.
You know,
A slightly increased price.
and here's the deal. You know, everybody wants the lovely, pretty blonde stuff, and they're like, okay, kids, sativas give you that, you know, indicas are dark. I have a different philosophy about it. I think that that all the plants are light at one point in time. I mean, it's where the trichomes are. I mean, you look at it when you're watching them. So it's just that indicas ripen faster than sativas.
Right.
So that gives us plenty of opportunity. So we can take those indicas down at like 5 weeks
Yes, you can.
and have clear trichomes. And you know, I mean,
See, that's the thing. What they're going to do is they're trying for that blonde look, right? So they're
but it
tweaking
makes
it where
I
they
mean,
just
it makes it just like psychoactive as shit and anxiety laden. Anybody has anxiety issues, right, man, you're like straight to your medicine cabinet. It's like ugly. I mean, you know, I had stuff that Cinderella 99. You can take down at 8 weeks. It's a sativa. I mean, it's about as sativa as you can get. Take it down at 8 weeks, and so I'm thinking, okay, I'll do that once. But you know, and I'm a major ADHD woman. You know, I travel 90 miles an hour all the time. So I take a hit of this stuff, and it's like, shit, I'm like major anxiety attack. It's like, okay, where's my train wreck? So I had to take a hit of train wreck at the same time I took a hit of C99. Because I really liked the energy that C99 gave you, but not the anxiety that accompanied it. It's like, cut that mania out. Yeah, so I have to grow on C99 a little bit longer than that just because of what it does to you. So, I mean, but here, we're in a recreational world now. I mean, at least in Oregon, I'm sorry.
Oregon.
We're in a
California
recreational.
next year,
We're maybe, hopefully.
2016.
But, you know, for us, it's like, you know, most people that are out partying are, you know, if they're abusing drugs, it's the uppers that they're going after anyway. So, you know, to do that, you know, for recreational, I don't think is anything so bad. But to do that for a medical world is a whole different thing because you're looking at trichome development and for specifically what medical symptom that you're trying to alleviate. So. You know, they pay close attention to that.
worlds.
Two different worlds.
Yeah.
Two totally different worlds. But it doesn't mean that they can't combine.
So they are.
They are anyways. They always have been. You know, I mean, every single one of us.
Medicated for fun and medicated for need.
I mean, come on, think about it. When we were young, we all thought we were abusing. We didn't figure it out. We didn't figure out we
know
were
it was helping us.
medicating
Yeah.
until we got older and realized what was going on.
It's actually
So
worse.
now everybody's like, oh yeah, they're abusing drugs. I'm like, no, everybody just thinks you are. You know, you're self-medicating, and you know, when you're young, all of us, when we were young, we were dealing with mental issues. All young people are fucking crazy.
That's about the fact.
It's just the way it is. I mean, you have to get older before you escape the insanity. And so, while you're young, you're medicating the insanity. I mean, you got to mellow out, man. So that's what's happening when you're young. And it's still medicating. It's still mellowing you out. It's still doing the things that you know, some kids normally go through, you know.
I was thinking about doing maybe a carport type structure.
Yeah, I'm putting up a 25 by 40 foot steel building. It's a metal carport. I'm putting the
This goes up
insulated
at the
on top,
top.
and the metal posts that are all the legs for it. I'm just screwing 2x4s to it and I'm walling it off.
Well, it
And then I got
could be.
big opening areas for
Very well
letting air
could be.
out. That's just so it kind of closes in a little
Yeah,
bit.
you got that, I mean, you got, yeah, I think that's pretty good.
I can build a metal shed where I'm at because I don't need a permit to do it.
Right.
With the metal shed. And
Yeah.
just wall it off.
We're not gonna let that.
One more.
I'm out of the country. But I can't count.
Because we're dumping into, you could, but it's, but we're dumping into we're dumping back into a 1/4" flare
Oh,
fitting
I
on
see.
the pump. And so
You
now
just
you're
make it back up.
double
Yeah.
coming back down, and this is about as far as I wanted to press it, so, you could do it further down, like I said, but not necessarily the best way to go. I bounced back and forth on that a couple of times. If you want to do it, I have all the parts that you can, but
That's what I heard about that too, is because the 1" hose is less resistance, the 1/2" hose is less resistance, and
exactly.
making back down to a 1/4" into the pump.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, the other issue is that even with respect to that narrowing, you still have Venturi effect, you
Yeah.
know, so.
Okay, that's something I don't really understand, and I haven't got my head
Well,
wrapped
the
around
velocity increases as the dimension
that. Get tight
reduces.
Yeah.
Anyway. So anyway, that's the, so now you've taken one of your gauges, compound gauge, and it goes here, and the other compound gauge here goes up at the top. There you go, Owen, you're tall. We better put this together down here. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, so my fingers dislocate. Actually, all of them does.
That could be,
That's tough.
yeah, it is. No surgery for you, huh?
Oh, yeah, there you go. And you may not be able to do that. You might have to take the first.
Yeah, I haven't had to think about expanding yet, but I'm sure it's gonna happen real soon in the future for the bigger columns on these tools. And then go with the dual pump. I can see that right now with that bigger column. it's gonna take dual pumps.
You'll be
You're only
happy.
running one right now?
Yeah.
And you can do that. We did for a long time, but it's just a lot faster to run.
Yeah, time is efficiency and money.
Exactly. So there you have it.
I've seen some pictures of the coast. I haven't been over there for a few years. I'd like to go look at it again before it goes away or something. Heard about that.
There you go.
That was down for 3 days.
So, at any rate, so there you go. Oh, and the other thing is right here. This is your feed line. You see what's happening here? This is attached to your butane supply line, and you're either running liquid butane in at the bottom with this valve closed and flooding from the bottom, or you have this valve closed, this valve open, and you're flooding, and this valve closed, so you're showering down from the top.
In your videos, you said that the top, obviously with gravity, I mean, that's a better flow, right? Rather than doing from the bottom. Why would you do this from the bottom?
Because have you ever done any open blasting?
Uh,
Okay, when you're open blasting and watching what happens to your pack when you're blasting from the top, is that channeling occurs, seeking the path of least resistance. And unfortunately for those that are blasting, that path of least resistance is around the buds where all the hash oil is. So you can't possibly get thorough extraction blasting just from the top unless you blast for a long time.
Oh.
But if you flood from the bottom first and make sure everything's nice and wet, then there's no path of least resistance there. You minimize that issue. And that's why we've increased the yield. It's just that one mere fact. It's just,
Soak it in the shower
right,
rinses.
and then the shower rinses it down. So it's a totally logical when you think about it. And then when you look at it under the scope, you see how factually it actually is true, so.
That's a big tell right there, is the scope, like, really
Yeah.
helped me out looking at it.
Looking at it under the scope, you can see exactly what's going on.
With Magnesium, you couldn't get fat. You just throw materials away. You had to run twice if you tried doing it. It's just too much work.
So, we haven't put everything on here yet. We haven't put everything on. We're missing, let's see, where is it? There's gotta be another, about 45 somewhere. Not here. Where are some of these?
Is it on that valve? No, that's not
No.
the valve.
No. Okay, I'm gonna go get another 45. Oh, it's on there, that's why.
Yeah, okay, there. Right.
That would be why. Okay, so now it's just this. There you go. Take this off and we're gonna get it to go on. This. It may not be this. There you go.
So the neighbors are pretty, aren't too, you don't have any problems with neighbors here with these big machines hanging out in the yard?
They don't know what hurt.
Well, they do know, I mean,
You can't hide that. It's in the front window.
I mean, people cart them out to print all the
Oh, yeah,
time,
yeah.
so they
Something's
know.
going on.
they do know. So, okay, and the other thing that we're doing, is, two more things. Rather than, when we make the change to the big systems, this valve is a 1/4-inch valve, and I'll be right back. Not necessarily the best way to go. I bounced back and forth on that a couple of times. If you want to do it, I have all the parts that you can. But I,
I was wondering about that too. Because the 1-inch hose is less resistance, the 1/2-inch hose is less
Hard enough
resistance.
to-
exactly.
Necking back down to a 1/4 inch into the pump.
Yeah, exactly. And but you know, the other issue is that even with respect to that narrowing, you still have Venturi effect, you know, so.
That's something I don't really understand and haven't got my head
Well,
wrapped
the
around.
velocity increases as the dimension reduces.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, the most obvious place that I saw it, which is the most incredible thing, I'm so glad that I saw it, I probably never will see it again in my life, was a saltwater waterfall, where it was the inland waters of the inside passage of Vancouver Island up in Canada. We were sailing and against tides, and the water was coming from a small narrow passage into a wide bay, and as it dropped from that narrow passage, there was an 18-inch waterfall. It was an absolute 90-degree stair step, salt water. It's like because I was dragging my feet trying to stay with a girlfriend, hanging out with a girlfriend up in the inside passage up there, you know, camping out. And well, they had a really nice lodge, but at any rate, just wanting to stay longer, so I figured, you know, if any sailor, especially a small boat under 30 feet, you're not going to leave against the tide. Even bigger than that, you're not going to leave against the tide. It's stupid.
You just
The
burn
farther
fuel.
north you go, it's like you might go backwards. So you do in these places in San Juan Island. So I just figured he would, common sense would prevail and he wouldn't leave. But no, we had to leave. And so we came around the corner and witnessed that 18-inch waterfall. And I looked at him and I said, "So what do you think, Skipper? Shall we give her a shot? Or are we going to lay anchor over here behind this island?
Hang out.
And we could be with our friends smoking dope. But no,
We're in a boat. Waiting for the tide to
no, we're
change.
out here." Anyway. So anyway, that's the, so now you've taken one of your gauges, compound gauge, and it goes here, and the other compound gauge here goes up at the top. There you go, Owen, you're tall. We better put this together down here, though, so that we can get I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, so my fingers dislocate. Actually, all of them.
That could be,
That's tough.
yeah, it is. No surgery for you, huh?
Yeah, there you go. And you may not be able to do that. You might have to take the.
Yeah, I haven't had to think about expanding yet, but I'm sure it's gonna happen real soon in the future. Just for the bigger columns on these tools. And then go with the dual pump. I can see that right now with that bigger column. It's gonna take dual pumps.
Yeah, you'll.
You're
yeah.
only running one right now?
Yeah.
And you can do that. We did for a long time, but it's just a lot faster.
Yeah, time is efficiency and money.
Exactly. So there you have it.
I've seen some pictures of the coast. I haven't been over there for a few years. I'd like to go look at it again before it goes away or something. Heard about that.
There you go. So that's how you put one of these puppies together. And it's not really hard. It's very logical, but it's not simple.
On tape and tightening these
Oh.
units, what's your suggestion here, Claire?
I would take 3 wraps, and I generally, the tape that I use and I just send with my kits is it's just this PTFE number 3 gas tape.
Yep.
Wrap. Take 3 wraps and tighten it down, but don't tighten it super tight. Leave plenty of room for more tightening, and generally it will hold. If you don't tighten it down too far, it will hold right away. And if it doesn't, you've given yourself enough room to torque it down further. But if you torque it down really tight to begin with, now you've broken it, and and you have to pull it apart and retape, and it's a pain in the ass. So just give yourself 3 wraps. You should be able to pull 3 threads in, pull that far into it when you're threading it in. And you should be good to go. Pressurize it, wash everything down good, pressurize it, and throw some throwaway stuff that you've spent material for your first runs to make sure you get all the fines and everything out of it. When you go. Now the only thing that you guys still haven't learned